All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday night Bible class. Yeah. Do I need to move it up? Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our Wednesday night Bible class. We've got some visitors, so just kind of to explain what we're doing. Through our third quarter this summer, on Wednesday nights, we have a different gentleman teach class every single week. And we are studying, there you go. No, you're fine. We are studying miracles this quarter. And tonight we're going to be studying Elijah and the Baals. If you've got a Bible, I'd encourage you to open it up to 1 Kings chapter 16. That's where we're going to start tonight. That's where our story begins, is 1 Kings chapter 16. While you all are turning there, I'd like to read one of my favorite passages in the entire Bible. It's from the book of James. There's no better place to start talking about Elijah than the book of James. At the very, very end of the book, talking about the power of prayer, James writes, beginning in verse 16, "The prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. Elijah was a man with a nature like ours, and he prayed fervently that it might not rain, and for 3 years and 6 months it did not rain on the earth. Then he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth bore its fruit." That's basically the story we're going to be talking about tonight. And I love the way that that is worded. Elijah was a man with a nature like ours. I think it's really important for us as we read stories in the Bible to understand that the people we're reading about are people, just like us. They're not a higher class of believer or of person. Their faith and their failures are perfectly attainable to us. And I think that's a great place to start as we jump into this story tonight. I said we were going to start in 1 Kings 16, but I'm kind of teasing you just a little bit. I want to start our story tonight with where the story ends, because I think our take-home point is going to really center around the ending of this story. And it's also my favorite story in the entire Bible. There's no way we could get this close to it and me not talk about it to some length. So starting in 1 Kings 19, where our story tonight actually ends. Elijah is afraid. He's running for his life, and he is not doing well. Beginning in verse 3, then Elijah, was afraid, and he arose, and he ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, "It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." I just want us to keep that little part of the story in mind as we read through the rest of it, because it's really interesting. How do we get from the great things we're about to read, and the great things Elijah does, to this? And what can we learn about ourselves from that part of the story? That's where I think all the good stuff in the story actually lies. Okay. To actually begin with everything the way that I promised we would. The order of events. This story begins with Ahab becoming king. If you've got your Bibles open to 1 Kings chapter 16, I'm going to ask that someone reads verses 29 to 31 for me. I try not to do all the talking, otherwise I know that I can, and I know that I will, so I'm going to try my best to stop.
In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab the son of Omri became king over Israel, and Ahab the son of Omri reigned over Israel and Samaria 22 years. Now Ahab the son of Omri did evil in the sight of the Lord more than all who were before him of Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Then he took his wife Jezebel the daughter of Baal, king of the Sidonians, and he went and served Baal and worshipped him.
Perfect, thank you. This story begins with Ahab, like I said. And if you know anything about the history of Israel, you know that Ahab was one bad dude. And even more than that, he was like the worst dude. He was the worst king that Israel had. And they had nothing but duds the whole way through. I love the way that it's worded here in the text, in verse 31. As if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, he did even worse. He married this woman, Jezebel, who worshipped the Baals, and bad things happen as soon as Ahab becomes king. So the next thing in our story, Elijah predicts a drought. Fascinating enough, this is the first time we actually are introduced to Elijah in the text. It's not like he's a character we need to know anything about. Ahab becomes king. All of a sudden, beginning of chapter 17, we meet this guy Elijah. Beginning in chapter 17 and verse 1, now Elijah the Tishbite of Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab the king, as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years, except by my word. Perfect. Clear as day. He says, here I am. I'm a prophet of God. It's not going to rain. And now all the fun stuff starts. Because the next thing that Elijah is told to do, starting in verse 2 and 3, God says to Elijah, depart from here, turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cheredith, which is in the east of Jordan. God says, okay, go tell the king it's not going to rain, and now get out of town. Go hide. Why? Why do we think that Elijah was told, like, hey, go to the king, predict this big, huge thing, and then get out of town? What are we thinking? It's not a popular message, right? Absolutely not. Hey, things are going to get really bad around here, and I'm just going to be down the street if you're looking for me, right? I think a fascinating part of it, and exactly to your point, is the way that Elijah words it when he makes this declaration. He says, it will not rain except by my word, and you're not going to be able to find me. He's just like, you can't bother me about it if you don't know where I am. And so Elijah absconds. He gets out of town. He goes and hides. Fascinating thing. I wish Ryan was here that I could look at him in the eyes and ask him. But what we see in this chapter, in 1 Kings 17, is 3 stories that we talked about last week in our study on the miracles of provision. Ooh, I don't know what I did. Anyways, miracles of provision. All of a sudden, there's a drought. People are in some pretty desperate need. Things are not good. And God takes care of people. Elijah's one of those people. That's when the ravens come and bring him bread and meat, and he drinks out of a brook. Then the brook dries up. He runs to the widow of Zarephath, and that's where the flour and the oil don't run out. God continues to take care of these people that are in need. And then there at the end, Elijah raises from the dead a widow's son. It's interesting, I think, that these 3 stories happen as this drought is happening. When are people most in need? When there's no food or water to be found. Then we see God being generous and taking care of people. And then we get to the actual part of the story we're actually going to be talking about 10 minutes into class. Confrontation, the good stuff. Chapter 18. If you have headings in your Bible, this is a thing that I love to talk about whenever I teach Bible class. I don't know why, but I think the headings in our Bible are kind of fascinating. It's like the only part of our Bibles that we consistently read that are not inspired text. This is just like what someone has read and says, hey, this is what's going to happen. And above chapter 18, Elijah confronts Ahab. So, do we remember how long it has been? We read it back in James. I know we didn't actually read it. I read it out loud. But how long has it been since Elijah made himself known to the new king of Israel? 3 years. 3 years is a very long time. I think we talked about it last week. We were talking about miracles of provision. We would start getting really antsy around here if it's been 3 weeks without rain. Different parts of the world, sure. 3.5 years is a very long time. Adam, isn't that about how old Clara is right now? 3.5 years or so? For all of Clara's life, it has not rained at all. Things are not good. This is the setting that we find ourselves in. Elijah. Ahab, would you believe it, not happy with Elijah. So, what else do I have? Confrontation. Excellent. So, back to a question I asked earlier. Why do we think that Elijah was told to disappear, make himself scarce? I think part of it was people can't bother Elijah. People can't harass him if they can't find him. Definitely part of it. But it hasn't rained in 3.5 years. I don't know what I'm doing that makes it do that. 3.5 years. Do you think anyone has noticed? Yeah, I think everyone's pretty aware that it has not rained for 3.5 years. And that's because the audience, the intended target of this miracle that we're going to be discussing, is everyone. Everyone's going to be aware of the no rain, but also, if we want to look ahead at 18 verse 20, Elijah calls everyone around for this confrontation that's going to happen between the Baals and him. The message. Well, I guess we'll get to that. God tells Elijah, all right, go and talk to King Ahab. Starting in verse 1 in 1 Kings 18, can I get someone to read the first 4 verses of chapter 18 for me?
After many days, the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. So Elijah went to show himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria, and Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the household. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly. And when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in the cave and fed them with bread and water.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, God says, hey, go find Ahab. And the person that he immediately finds is Obadiah. And Obadiah is going to have this conversation with Elijah. He says, hey, go tell King Ahab I'm here. I'm looking for him. Obadiah gets really afraid. He's like, hey, what did I do? Why are you sending me? Because Ahab's been looking everywhere for you, man, and he's going to be really upset when you disappear. And when I tell him I'm going to come find you, and you're going to be gone, and he's going to kill me for it. And Elijah assuages his fears. Don't worry about it. Trust me. I'm here to stay. Not really important to the part of the story, but something I did want to talk about there. Just there's this tension between Elijah and Ahab. Ahab's been looking all over the place for him. And we get kind of to see that beginning in verse 17 in 1 Kings 18. In verse 17, when Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, "Is it you, O troubler of Israel?" And Elijah answered, "I have not troubled Israel, but you have, and your father's house, because you have abandoned the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. Now therefore send and gather all Israel," audience, everyone, gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, and the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent to all the people of Israel and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, "How long will you go limping between 2 different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him." And the people did not answer him a word. Then Elijah said to the people, even I only am left prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let 2 bulls be given to us, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves and cut into pieces and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood and put no fire to it. And you call upon the name of your God, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God. And all the people answered, "It is well spoken." So we finally get to see the purpose of all this. What I think is really neat is on our little sign-up sheet that we signed up for who's teaching what class, it just says Elijah and the prophets of Baal. And I said, I want that one. And if you're just looking at the text, really it starts about here, like chapter 18, verse 20. But there's so much context to this, which I think just makes the story even better. And then what comes after makes the story even better than that. All of this is fascinating enough on its own, this like dueling sacrifices situation that we find ourselves in. But knowing, hey, there's been a drought for 3.5 years, and everyone's aware of it. And Ahab is really unhappy with Elijah, and then he sets up this grand, like, contest. It just makes everything so much cooler. I hate to say the word cool in a Bible class, but it's a fascinating story, and it gets so much better than this. Any thoughts? The message, obviously, the Lord is God. That's like stated by Elijah himself. We're doing this to see who's God. If Baal answers, then obviously it's Baal. if God answers, obviously it's God. And we're going to have everyone here to witness this. Everyone's going to know. Which I think, again, is absolutely part of the design of this miracle.
What he says to them in verse 21, how long will you falter between two opinions? If the Lord's God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him, reminds me a lot of what Joshua said to the Israelites. Joshua 24 in verses 14 and 15. Like, who are you going to serve? Are you going to serve the gods that they serve here, or are you going to serve the Lord?
Choose whom this day, who you will serve. Absolutely. That's something that when I kept thinking about this, I was like, oh yeah, just like Joshua said, and I didn't put it in my notes. Nick, do you have something?
Yeah, I just thought it reminds me a lot of the Exodus and the 10 plagues, in part because the miracles there weren't just performed in private in the sight of Pharaoh, but they were very public and they affected the whole nation.
Oh yeah.
The same way here that this isn't just a private miracle performed in front of Ahab or in front of the prophets of Baal, but it's for all people, which I really like that point. And the second point I thought was interesting parallel is they're both direct conflicts with other false gods. So it seems like that's probably a theme in the miracles that I never picked up before, which is God challenging these false gods.
Absolutely. I think Ahab gets a lot of special attention, but like this is a story about everyone. John, then Jessica.
So last night in the Tuesday night Bible study, one of the guys, Owen, who's just baptized recently, he was leading it, and this reminded me of that study, because in verse 21, he says, if the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him. And then it says, the people didn't answer him a word. So they were on the fence, they were in between those two things, they didn't choose. And it's like, if you don't choose at all, you're choosing the wrong thing.
Absolutely. Jessica?
I've just always been curious what the prophets of Baal were expecting to happen. Like in my mind, I don't expect anything to happen, but they're all on board with this whole thing and thinking, yeah, we're going to take you down. And in my mind, I'm like, really?
Faith is really an impressive thing. When you think about we're going to read about some incredible faith, here in just a second, but that's part of it too, is one of the things I think about is this wouldn't have been the first time the prophets of Baal had thought, let's ask Baal to make it rain, right? They've been at this probably for a while. This isn't like a...
Some with this whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're like gung-ho with this.
Faith is something, confrontation is something. I think it's just this beautiful storm of circumstances.
It's interesting, too, that this is the majority that is faithful towards the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And they are very faithful to it, to the point of shedding blood. And God is one God. They have Baal, etc. And that's oftentimes when we face the culture, we are having to stand alone, or we feel like we're standing alone. But the reality is, no, you've got the strongest, only God that there is, and you are not alone. Even though we don't see him, we are not alone.
Yeah. That's a huge part of it, and we'll circle back to it. What do you have, Josh?
I was just thinking about your coolness comment. Which I think is
I don't want to be on the record as saying that, but I know what you mean.
No, well, it's cool and it's awesome and it's intentional, right? All this is intentional. They're away from God, and when people are away from God, and God needs to draw them back, he takes them through the valley, and he battles. He is intentionally putting them in a very depressive, bad state so they can recognize ultimately who he is.
Yeah. Do you have something, Cindy?
Oh, no.
Okay, I couldn't tell. All right. So, what I love about this is that Elijah shows a little bit of gamesmanship. That's the word I'm choosing to use. And I think there's something also a little bit intentional about this. I think we could read this situation in the way that Elijah sets up this kind of contest. And he's actually super fair with the prophets of Baal. Fair being that from outside perspectives, neutral ground, this looks like a fair fight. We know it's not. We know how this story ends. But I love the way that he kind of lays this all out. Starting in verse 22, he says, I'm alone, but the Baal's prophets are 450 men, to your point. This is almost set up like an underdog story. He's like, hey, there's 450 you, there's one of me. You guys are the religious establishment in the country. You guys forgot I was here. You didn't even know where you guys have never seen me before. But let's try this. Hear me out. Let's try this little contest of mine. Let 2 bulls be given to us, and let them choose first. You guys have the first pick. You have, ostensibly, the best sacrifice of the two bulls. He lays out the rules, cut it into pieces, set it on the wood, just don't lay fire to it. I'll even let you guys go first. It's not a race, so it's not like, oh, my God beat your God to it. He's going to give them the first go, the first chance at everything. Because Elijah knows he's going to win, but I like that there is no ground in this story for doubt. There's no situation where it's like, oh, well, Elijah rigged the game in his favor. He really doesn't. This is a game that, again, from a neutral standpoint, the prophets of Baal stand a chance in, which I think, again, is going to further cement the Lord is God. There's no doubt in anyone's mind at the end of the story how this all works out. He makes the contest seem fair. All right, now the good stuff. The rules have been set. The table has been laid. Let's see what actually happens. Could I get a reader? Let's. I need to stop talking so much. Can I get someone to read verse 26 to 29 for me, please, in 1 Kings chapter 18?
And they took the bull that was given them, and they prepared it and called upon the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped around the altar that they had made. And at noon Elijah mocked them, saying, Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is musing, or he is relieving himself, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and must be awakened. And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their custom with swords and lances until the blood gushed out upon them. And as midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation. But there was no voice, no one answered, no one paid attention.
Thank you. All right, I'll let you guys take, first crack at this. What do you guys think? What stands out? What do you guys think about the Baal's, attempt?
I was gonna say it's pretty absolute, there was no voice, no one paid attention, it's just absolute, there was nothing.
Yeah, this is written in no uncertain terms. I think that's part of it too, is that this story is so visually evocative. Some stories in the Bible, you gotta get a little creative to kind of visualize. I think this one's clear as day. I can see it just perfectly. And it's written in a way that is just so, like you said, final and precise. Do you have something, Kevin?
Yeah, Elijah let him go on for 4 to 6 hours. I don't know, morning to noon, but a while. He just kind of waits.
Yeah.
Watches and lets them do their thing.
That's a part of it that, as I was reading this and thinking about it, is really something else. Morning to noon, and then he kind of interjects and kind of gets his licks in, but then he lets them go a little bit longer. Where it says the hour of the oblation, that's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're probably running for 6 or 7 hours. We get upset if Ryan preaches for 45 minutes. They had the whole people gathered around watching this kind of horror show before their eyes for 6 or 7 hours. That's a full shift they put in watching them rave on, as the text says. You have something, Tyler?
Yeah, I think kind of to Justin's point earlier, it makes me think, what is it that's happened in the past that makes them think they do all these things and their gods are gonna light this bull on fire? It's what's the end goal of doing all this stuff if you've never done it before?
Like I said, man, faith is really a powerful thing, but also you get challenged to your face by this stranger you've never met. Oh, come on, we can take him. It gets ugly fast.
I like how you started out talking about Elijah as a man just like us. He has emotions just like us. And then we have the story of Elijah talking dog. And I know I've felt that feeling before. But to apply that to our faith, to apply the
And to set up the contest the way that he did, where it's like, in theory, Elijah could lose before he ever gets started. There is an intense faith that he knows exactly how this is going to end. Do you have something?
Yeah.
And then we'll come to Nick.
Kind of related to that, I like to think of just what he's been allowed to do. I think of the parable of the talents and the one who has a lot more is given. I think of how you read at the beginning, when it talks about, as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, before I stand, surely there will be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word, by his word. I mean, he knows it's from God. He gives all credit to God. So I understand that. It sounds an awful lot like things from Matthew 8:26, where Jesus is rebuking the storm. I mean, he's been given a lot of authority. So there's a lot to be said here for somebody who's so godly that he's really been given a lot.
Oh, yeah,
It's impressive.
absolutely. And it gets even more impressive as the story goes. That's what gets even crazier about it, is that we think we've seen the cool stuff, and we really haven't yet. Anyone else?
He let him go on for a long time. Ahab called all of Israel. Imagine the crowd turning, right? Because they're all in on Baal. And then hours go on, and then if he were to just come in and let God do what God was going to do, they would be like, oh, well, you didn't give us enough time. But just think about being in any awkward situation ever. The longer it goes on, you just feel the knife turn a little bit. And so just let it go on hour after hour, letting more and more people's faith be called into question. And God removes it.
It's effective. It's just a finely tuned piece of chaos.
Jesse, I love the way that Elijah becomes comedian. Draws the people in. He must have been.
You almost get the sense that the crowd was starting to just like, okay, how long are we going to keep doing this? He's like, oh, no. Keep watching. Nothing's going to happen.
I'm just thinking, like, after what we already looked at, what he went through in the 3 years and how God took care of him, it enables him to have the faith to do this contest and know that God's going to protect him through it. And his faith is completely in God. I think that's why later, when he struggles, it's because he's thinking about himself.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be like he is here, where he's actually focused on what God can do for you and not your own frailness, I guess.
Absolutely.
I think it's also interesting. It's like eventually you're like, oh, he must be asleep. Like he must be asleep. Nothing's happening. He's just sleeping. We gotta wait. We gotta keep doing it. We gotta wait.
Oh, surely. He's out there somewhere, I'm sure. Just if you scream loud enough, I'm sure he'll hear you eventually, right?
I just think about how they were cutting themselves with knives. I mean, their faith was so strong. They're mutilating themselves. Hoping this guy answers.
Horror show is the word I chose. Like, pretty intense. Where is the word exactly? It says that they raved on. It's verse 29. And as midday passed, they raved on. Raving is not something that is ever used in a sense that's like calm, collected. Like the phrase stark raving mad is only ever, like that word is only used to talk about people who are out of it, out of their minds, crazy, just out of control. And that's exactly what these folks were.
28, it's on my Bible, it says, and they cried out and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lances till the blood gushed upon them. I mean, that's a horror show.
Yeah, they were trying to get someone's attention, and to Sarah's point where it started, at the very end, verse 29, no one answered, there was no voice, no one paid attention. In no uncertain terms, this story is written. It's like, hey, there was nothing, no chance, no like, oh, he tried, like Baal was trying, but nothing, just perfect crickets, just silence. Talked about how much time it took. This is an interesting one. In my Bible, the ESV, when Elijah kind of makes this challenge, he speaks to the people and he asks, how long will you go limping between two different opinions? And then that word limping was also used again there in verse 26, when the prophets of Baal took the bull that was given them and they prepared it and called on the name of Baal morning until noon. And they were, oh Baal, answer us. And there was no voice, and no one answered, and they limped around the altar that they had made. I don't really know what to make of it, but the word choice is the same. I think kind of tying it to, I feel like it's, to kind of take Ryan's general theory, I don't think that any word choice in the Bible is accidental. Elijah probably knew what was going on during their offerings and their whole thing. He's like, how long are you going to keep limping between two opinions? And everyone's kind of like, oh, I think I know what he means by that. Perhaps that's it, but I find it interesting that word's used twice. And then the finality of it. There was no voice, no one answered, no one paid any attention. Now we get to Elijah. It's been several hours. I'm sure everyone's pretty tired of watching the spectacle that's before them. And Elijah kind of brings it all in, quite literally. Can I get someone to read verse 30? Oh, good grief. Let's start with 30 to 35 for now.
Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come near to me," and all the people came near to him. And he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been thrown down. Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord came, saying, "Israel shall be your name." And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 seahs of seed. And he put the wood in order and cut the bowl in pieces and laid it on the wood. And he said, "Fill 4 jars with water and pour it on the burnt offering on the wood and on the wood." And he said, "Do it a second time." And they did it a second time. And he said, "Do it a third time." And they did it a third time. And the water ran around the altar and filled the trench also with water.
And can I get someone to read 36 to 38?
And at the time of the offering of the oblation, Elijah the prophet came near and said, "O Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that the people may know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back." Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench.
Thank you, guys. So, what do you think about that? I'm going to let you guys just run away with it.
It's interesting to me to see the effort that the worshippers of Baal put in cutting themselves, chanting, doing all those things, and all Elijah had to do was just ask.
That's definitely part of it, is Elijah brings everyone in. It's simple. And I think part of the reason it's so simple is because it's an immediate response. They don't have to go on for hours. Elijah doesn't have to feel like he has to escalate things to get God's attention. God hears, it happens.
It's interesting that Elijah puts himself behind the 8 ball even further by asking for, water. And for that much water to stay on top of ground that is parched, that had to be, I don't know how big the jars are.
I didn't even think about that.
The land is needing
Yeah.
that water, and it's not even sucking in that amount, so it had to be a huge amount, and where they came up with that water.
I can't help but think about the people standing around watching. It's like, it hasn't rained for 3.5 years, and then you got this guy pouring 12 jars of perfectly drinkable water. You have to be thinking, everyone's like, this had better work, because we're going to kill him if it doesn't, right?
The fact that all the people came near, and the fact that it hasn't rained for 3.5 years, and the people are pouring the water, the most precious commodity that there is, means they're not on the fence anymore. They've made the decision with Elijah, because he says it,
Yeah.
praise God, down there in verse 37, that thou hast turned their heart back again. So it is a celebration at that point.
Absolutely. I hadn't even thought about that. You guys, this is why I love hearing from other people, because just do a better job than I do, seeing everything.
A few weeks ago too, but who Baal was supposed to be the god of was the god of water, storms,
Yeah.
and agriculture. So it's just an additional mockery.
Absolutely. And like I said, 3.5 years, they probably tried this a time or two, you'd think, and then just throws it right in his face.
Elijah could have built that altar while the prophets of didn't. He waited and he said, Israel, come over here. And then he built the altar that they had torn down. Essentially saying, like, this is who we are.
I love it. Absolutely. It's so symbolic. It's a symbolic act. Like, yes, you have to have an altar to burn an offering on, but it's just also, it's symbolic of like rebuilding the faith that was broken down and like torn apart. It's just another excellent part of the story. Did you have something, Dave?
I was thinking about how this is revealing who God is and how it is meant to be a spectacle. He is trying, or he's doing this for the sake of a spectacle. And, you know, the end result is what we're going to get to, but it's all a big suspense. Like he's building the suspense, just like Nick was saying of the 10 plagues.
Yeah.
It's just building and building and building, and that building is that faith response. Are you going to choose now? How about now? How about now? And then it gets to the point where, like your picture demonstrates, that there's going to come a time when you will have had to choose, or you have chosen already, and it's been incorrect.
Absolutely. I think this is where the context makes the story even better. That this is a miracle that's 3.5 years in the making. This isn't like Elijah showed up, was like, hey, here's an idea. Let's compete, you and I. This has been intentionally planned and like drawn out for a very long time to make a very strong and specific point. And it absolutely lands. Immediate response. And this is the great part. Verse 39. How do the people respond? And again, everything is consumed. That's the thing I don't think we had talked about. But the bull, the water, the stones, the dust, everything is gone. Like an atomic bomb went off. Everything's disappeared. And what do the people do? And beginning in verse 39, and when the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. The message, the aim for this has been completed. What did God seek to prove? That I am God. And he did. And that's what everyone saw, and that's what everyone said. And Elijah said to them, seize the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slaughtered them there. That's, to Dave's point, that's the artwork that's on the screen there. So Elijah rebuilds the broken down faith. He rebuilds that altar and then kills off the people that were causing all the problems. This is not just the Lord is God. This is a rebuilding. This is a cleansing of the nation of Israel. And then just to make things even better, we don't have time to read it because I'm running out of time, but at the end of this story, God says like, oh, hey, Elijah, go run and talk to Ahab. It's about to rain. And so on top of all this humiliation, Elijah gets to come to Ahab. He's like, hey, you better get in the chariot and get ahead of it because it's going to rain. And the way it's described is this, let's see. Verse 45, and in a little while the heavens grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. So after all this, it's not as if God said, you guys abandoned me, you weren't believing in me, I'm going to show you that I'm God, and I'm going to make you sit and suffer in this drought a little bit longer. Nope. God sends the rain, everything is kind of moving back to the way it was meant to. Okay. I had hoped to have a little bit more time than I did. What do you got?
One last thing.
Yeah.
That made me chuckle was verse 46. So in verse 45, the rain is coming and Ahab speeds off in his chariot. In verse 46, Elijah outruns him.
Yeah. The Spirit of the Lord beats him to it. It's a fascinating part of the story.
I don't know if somebody already said this, but I just see mercy throughout this whole story, and I think anytime you have heard somebody's story of how they found God, they went through this exact same scenario where they had other gods they were worshiping that left them in a drought, and, you know, God says, you know, I will take away the drought, and just pours down on them salvation and grace, and you see that every time you talk to someone about the Lord and share the gospel with them.
Some people have a light bulb moment. Some people have a fire from heaven moment, you know. Sometimes it ranges a little bit harder. Okay, aftermath. Let's go back to where we started Bible class with. Elijah is afraid and wishing that he was dead. How do we get here? So, starting in verse 1 of chapter 19, this is immediately after. Ahab is in the chariot. He makes his way, and Ahab told Jezebel, his wife, the queen, all that Elijah had done and how he had killed the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." And he was afraid, and he rose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree and asked that he might die, saying, "It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." I just find this part of the story so fascinating. Everything Elijah had done and everything Elijah had seen. And this is where he ends up. Afraid, running for his life, wishing he was dead, ready to quit. What this really is I don't want to do this anymore, God. I'm done. Elijah forgets he's not alone, which we briefly read about Obadiah. Here's the big thing. The thing I want us to take away from this class, and I think as we go through the rest of this quarter, is that miracles, or in our case, in our lives today, God's providence, is not a shortcut to faith or godliness. It's very, very easy for us to sit here in our pews in our air-conditioned building 2,000 plus years on and say, if I had seen what these people saw, I would never have problems believing or trusting in God ever again. It's so easy to say that. Like, you sit in Bible class and you hear people say it. But you look at the people that this happened to. Look at what Elijah did. He had called down fire from heaven, killed the prophets of the Baal, and the next day, his life gets threatened by the queen, and he's like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I quit. Look at what the things Jesus says. Jesus performed lots of miracles. For what purpose? So that people would believe in him. Absolutely. But the people that hounded him for signs, the people that were like chasing after him to show them something amazing, he looks down on them for that. Thomas, especially, there in that last one in John chapter 20. He asked Thomas, oh, you believe now that you've seen me that I've raised from the dead? There are people that haven't seen and yet believed. Blessed are they. And so the thing I want us to really be thinking about and praying about and really centering on is that our aim should be to grow in our faith. Because we haven't seen the things that we read in the Bible, and oftentimes in our lives, we're going to pray for certain things. We're going to ask God to answer prayers the way that we want him to. And sometimes he's not going to. Sometimes he is. If we spend our time in our lives thinking about and wondering, well, if God would just answer this prayer for me the way I want him to, I'd know he's there. I wouldn't have any problems with my faith from here on out. And that's just categorically not true. We see it all through the Bible. We see the way that it's handled. And I don't want us to get caught in this trap. Because the Bible is full of these people. Sorry, I pointed at both of you. That's not helpful.
So it's kind of like Peter, right? Walking on the water, and he had enough faith to get out of the boat.
Yeah.
And then he takes his eyes off Jesus and starts thinking about himself.
It took 15 seconds. It took no time at all.
You just got to remember, feeling being saved, we know we're saved. Even when we don't think we're saved.
Yeah.
There's many times you just got to sit there and think, because I think that's one of my favorite verses. Blessed are those who have not seen. And then another thing I think about is when Jesus was up there and all the people standing around him, Peter cut that guy's ear off and Jesus healed him. I mean, it doesn't say all the people automatically believed. They still went on and killed him. I mean, they seen him cut his ear off.
Yeah.
And go back on, and they didn't believe it. It's just dumbfounding. That's all that.
And it's so easy to think.
I haven't seen it, but I do believe it.
Absolutely.
There's times I don't feel like I'm saved, and I have to remind myself, yes, I am.
Absolutely.
Satan's going to make us think that's his goal.
Again, like I said, 1 Kings 19 is my favorite story in the whole Bible. If I wanted to, I could have just abandoned ship and talked about it all night and still not had enough time. Not the right thing to do. But I encourage you to read this story. It's, again, just as beautifully written as the chapter before it. It's this wonderful story. And it starts in a dark place, right? Elijah is done. He wants to quit. He wants to be dead. And ultimately, it is a story of God's grace. God deals gently with Elijah. He's not harsh with him the way that we might think God would be, or certainly the way that I think we would be with Elijah. God is gentle with him, forgives him, helps him pick his head up, and sends him back on his way. It's a beautiful story. I really encourage you to read it. I wish we could talk about it, but we just frankly don't have the time. I think that's it. Let's pray, and then we'll be done with class. Our Lord and our God, we thank you so much for your word that reveals yourself to us and reveals your plan and your desire to us. Lord, we pray that we can have our eyes open and our hearts open, that we can come to understand your word and to understand your will for us. Help us to shape our lives after your image as you designed us to be. Help us to grow in our faith and to realize that sometimes things may not go the way that we want them to, but we know that you're always there and that you're always good to us. Help us to deepen our faith and our trust in you always. Amen.